Hey everybody, how are you all doing? I hope you're doing awesome. I just want to take a few moments to talk to you guys about the Red Road Tribe, the new movement that we have started that a lot of you already know about. We basically started this movement to connect and to unite people all over the world who are walking the red road. For those of you who don't know, that means living a life free of drugs and alcohol and taking any kind of intoxicants, and basically trying to live a good, clean life. And we want to unite people because we know from our own experience that sometimes you can feel lonely walking the red road, whether it's in your community, in your family, wherever you are, whatever you're doing in the world. Sometimes if you don't like to go out partying and you've chosen your own path for yourself, sometimes you end up feeling like the odd person out, and you can start to wonder if it's even worth it, or what good you're really doing. So we want to connect people all over who might be having those kinds of feelings and can identify with one another, and we can encourage one another to keep on that path and to keep moving down the path in our lives in a good way, and keep making positive changes in the world through living a life of sobriety, because it does matter and it is very important, especially at this time in the world and the way things are. So the first phase of the movement was the t-shirts, and the t-shirts are basically a marketing strategy to help give people that sense of pride, to be walking the path that they're on in life. And the Red Road Tribe, I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's a pipe actually going through the word red, and it's and with some eagle feathers hanging down off it. And it's very important in our culture because in order to smoke the ceremonial pipe, you actually have to be sober and clean for a certain amount of days before doing so. So that just represents that aspect of it. And eagle feathers also, we believe in our culture that you shouldn't, eagle feathers should never have any alcohol or any substances like that in the presence of them, because they're so sacred. And we also have a powwow dancer. A powwow is a very important spiritual cultural ceremony that we do that is also drug and alcohol free, because our ancestors believed in the value of having a clear mind and an awakened spirit, so that we can raise our kids in a good way and be good role models for the young people, and to be good, healthy members of our community, to build strong communities, and to make positive changes in the world. So that's what the shirts are about, and we're making those available to people all over. And so the second phase of the movement is going to be basically we want to tell you a little bit about ourselves, so you can kind of get to know us. Because what we want to come out of this is we want you guys to write your Red Road stories, send them in to us so that we can post them on the page, and then that's how we're going to start to connect people and start to relate with one another, and we'll be able to encourage and inspire one another on an ongoing basis, which is really the main goal of the movement. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, my story in a nutshell, I guess I'm going to try to make it brief, because I'd be here all day if I told you the long version. But my name is Alex Tomer. I'm originally from Fredericton, New Brunswick, a proud member of the Malsea tribe from Kingsclear First Nation. And I wasn't raised in my native community full time. Like I would spend time there growing up, but for the most part, I went to school. Where I would go to school, I was really the only native student there, and I didn't really have any idea what it meant to be native. And I found out that when you don't really know who you are, or have any kind of concept of identity for yourself, you'll believe what other people tell you that you are. And the places that I went to, that I lived growing up, a lot of the other people didn't understand what it meant to be native either. So what I got was a lot of the negative stereotypes that come along with that for people who are uneducated and confused about what that means. So people saying I was never going to amount to anything but just being another drunken Indian, or another unemployed Indian, or whatever. The list goes on and on, the derogatory terms. And so I really took that on, and I started to become ashamed of who I was, and I really rejected that part of myself, and that caused me a lot of pain and a lot of confusion growing up. No really healthy sense of identity or value of who I was in the world. And after a while, when I was a teenager, carrying those feelings with me for a long time, I turned to drugs and alcohol, because I found that at the time they were good tools for masking that pain. All these feelings that I didn't know how to figure out in life. Like, who am I? What am I doing in the world? Like, what's my purpose? What's my identity? I didn't have to figure that out anymore because I just found out I would just drink and they would all go away. And I went down that path for quite a while, and you know, only really bad. You know, I got that benefit from it, from being able to blot out my existence, but a lot of bad things came along with that too. Like, I started just getting in trouble, and I was mistreating people that cared about me, and I wasn't trustworthy anymore. And because all I really cared about, I would wake up in the morning and all I really cared about at the end of the day was getting that next drink or chasing that high, you know, because eventually alcohol wasn't enough and I had to turn to drugs. And eventually those drugs weren't enough, so I had to turn to harder drugs. And it was just nothing but misery and pain for me, but I chased it because it allowed me to escape the pain, you know. It was kind of a medicine for me, like a medication. And but eventually I got to a point in my life where I remember I woke up one day in my apartment. I was 21 years old, and all I owned was the mattress I was sleeping on in my apartment building. I had no idea where I was going in life. I had no relationships that meant anything to me anymore. My family didn't trust me. My friends didn't want to hang out with me anymore because I was always loaded or whatever, you know. And I called a member of my family who I knew went to Alcoholics Anonymous and asked them if they would take me to a meeting. And I went there and I found a lot of people that helped me, and you know, they really cared for me when I was unable to care for myself, and they helped me to learn to live a sober life, to deal with a lot of the pain that I had been dealing with, so that I didn't have to drink to mask that anymore. But I stayed sober for a few years, but I found that something was still missing, you know, like that confusion about my nativeness or what that meant was still with me in a lot of ways. And I remember going to speak to a native elder who told me that as a native person, a hunger and a thirst for my culture was actually within my DNA. And until I sought that out, until I went back and tried to learn about my people, the people I came from, and my ancestors, then my recovery was never really going to feel complete, and I was always going to be walking around with just that little feeling in the back of my mind, you know, not really knowing what I'm doing or where I'm going, because I didn't know where I came from. And so I remember the first time after that elder told me that, and he had invited me to a sweat lodge, and I had been to sweat lodges before, but this time was different. Because I was going with a really open heart and an open mind. And I remember going in that lodge, and I crawled in, and as soon as that door closed and it all went black, and I don't know if it was the smell of the medicine off the grandfathers, or the steam, and how, you know, cleansing that was, or just the sound of the drums and hearing my native language spoken. It just felt like I didn't really understand what was going on or what was being said, but I felt it. I understood it on a spiritual and on a heart level. And it just felt like I had come home, you know, like I was looking for my home for all these years in all these different places, and it was right there in front of me the whole time. The one thing that I was running away from was the one thing that I needed the most. And I just caught fire with my culture after that. I started doing sweat lodges like once, twice a week. I started learning the songs on the hand drum and learning my native language little by little. I'm still not a fluent speaker, but I try to learn as much as I can and to practice it as much as I can. And I even did a fast for 4 days and for 4 nights. I didn't drink any water. I didn't eat any food. And my culture allowed me to tap into a part of me that just I never even knew existed, like a strength within me, and an awakened spirit. And I found out that, you know, that the spirit of our ancestors lives on in us. And if we ask Creator and we do we learn about our people through ceremony and through language, then it awakens that spirit of those ancestors in us, and they can help us on our journey. And since then I haven't felt that feeling of being lost or, you know, trying to fit anywhere in the world, because I know that I already fit. I know where I come from, so now I can know where I'm going. And that's kind of my story in a nutshell. Like I said, the very short version of it. There's a lot more to it than that, and maybe maybe someday I'll share more. But for now, that's all I'm going to say, because we want to share these stories to give hope and to unite. And we don't just want to share ours. We want you to share yours. And hopefully that we can all start to encourage each other to stay on this good path. And you never know, just sharing openly and honestly. Sometimes we think that our stories have no value, but you never know the prison that you can unlock for someone else, you know, because it was people sharing about their struggles and the reality, you know, being real and genuine, that allowed me to walk out of my prison. And it's not about being perfect, you know. People can't relate with perfect. We can relate with the struggle, you know, but sometimes we don't want to talk about ours because we don't think it has any value, but it truly does. And that's what we want to show through this movement. So thank you very much for listening to me. Will Ewan, thank you. Sadal Mabamak, all my relations, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks.